So you better to pick one, left one.
Pick left or that right. Just kind of mix.
Golf right, because that's.
It's just the way people did it.
Can you switch it?
Yeah, that was good. Better right.
Better right. That's interesting.
Is it working?
It's just because that's the way I grew up.
Yeah. Are you stronger left arm or right arm?
Are you presenting?
No.
I'm presenting
Dribble a
first.
basketball.
That's not even
comfortably
my
with your
picture,
right
so
hand?
it's,
So that's your name.
no.
Use either.
Oh,
Not as well.
Okay.
When you present.
So swipe throw right. Kick right.
You want my phone number?
Bat right. Grizzly the basketball.
The number I want.
Better left. If I shoot right.
On the city
Bat
website.
high.
Okay.
Finer touch
So
is better left.
Let me see if I have
So,
anything. I know I have.
I had to work hard
I'm so
to
sorry.
Right?
You should
I was
check
just-
it. So you went to Bear River. How many were, how are you?
That's the number I have.
How many of you graduated?
I'm gonna guess around.
Yes, please. Information, so I don't know if I have it.
Well, hello there.
Howdy.
How are you? Nice to see you.
What
What do you think about football coach hire?
Oh,
Have you been tracking her?
I have, yeah. I mean, I'm hopeful. You know, he'll do well at Weber State. And hopefully he can get there.
I'm really excited.
I don't know what other options they were looking at, so it's hard to really compare, I guess.
I don't know how you would have done better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, fit wise, it's probably good, right?
Yeah. Well, you've been working, you have to have occasion to listen to things. Comments, interviews,
No,
always says the right stuff.
yeah.
Like,
Okay.
you
How are you?
success is
My wife and my daughter.
value.
You like-
Okay.
Yes, I know.
What does he say about dropping 8 every play?
That's fine after the first.
Well, it's not just that.
You're right.
We got.
I'll tell you, we made a lot of quarterbacks. How are you?
How you doing?
You guys look like you're quite a fisherman. I remember dressing up like that. This part of time. No, it's just.
Well, thank you.
Just
You're the right
Well, Monday. I remember in fact, a couple of so when they went from formal his profession, his former business attire to well, maybe it is business.
Business casual, yeah.
It was just such a hard thing to adopt,
Yeah.
adapt to. It just didn't.
But he does.
Like, it seemed quite much.
I would have no problem with that.
I'm surprised that someone doesn't be dressed this way each day and that's expected.
Well, when I was a prosecutor,
I can see that.
and so I was a court sure. And when I moved over to the civil side, now I usually wear a polo. I feel sloppy.
Well, hello there.
Well, hi, my friend.
How are you? Nice to see you. How are you doing? You got the whole family.
How are you? I was seeing you.
You're very dangerous.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I don't know where you're sitting, but
That's a good one. That's good, right? Yeah, Marie, hello.
you have everybody.
Nice to see you. How are you?
Doing well.
Well, you don't want to get that chair. Who you want for this chair here?
Where's Natalie?
She's sitting right now.
Oh.
Yep, that's for sure.
People in the office, I think sometimes more cash.
I think change the system in here.
Maybe.
Oh, I know.
Maybe.
Right. You don't care.
I certainly feel more.
Do you feel it?
Very warm. Very.
the camera yet?
I think you're gonna be camera issues. Pretend that we are.
Key points.
No.
Yeah.
No, they're from.
Basketball.
No, it's like I am a football fan.
Okay.
I enjoy it, but I don't have to.
Yeah, there's.
What are you doing?
I'm new to the family.
Yeah.
No.
I told
Yeah.
my daughter was there and I think during
Both
COVID.
have to go for me, so going to the big go. Going into a basketball conference.
That's exciting.
I think our view is top to bottom.
Oh, I agree with you. All the other conferences have some
We're good to go? Okay. Yeah. We'll call this to order. Get going.
Sweet. Welcome, everybody.
So we're gonna. Are you gonna do your first?
Yes, so I'm going first and then Sam will present. So we will start with item 3.1 is for the Courtside and Greenbrier condos. Here is where they are located on the map. Essentially what they're doing, there's no physical changes to the buildings. They just are currently one plat and they want to split it so that each complex is its own plat. That's what's happening. So here's what it currently is. That's all one. It's just really long. And then they want to split it so that Courtside Place Condominiums is their own plat. They are. And then so Greenbrier Condominiums is their own plat. Here's what they look like from the street. Courtside is on the top, Greenbrier is on the bottom. And here we are. Does anybody have questions about this one?
Why would they be doing that? Do they need to disclose why they're doing it?
I don't think they've told us why they're doing it. They've just decided they want it to be separate. I think it was separate, then they put it together and they're separating it again, so.
Could be finance, could be something like that.
So they can sell one if they want to sell one building, they can.
Well, they're the condos, so they could sell individual units. Well, the condos will be owned by individual. Right. So would that require the people that live there to approve it? Do they get a say in that or? Right now, I think they own all the condo units.
It's already condos.
Yeah, so they're currently condos, but they own all of the units. They own all, so they're just renting the units. Okay. So it would give them the option to sell out the whole project if they wanted to.
That's awesome. Any other questions? Sweet. Okay. Item 3.2 is Hillcrest Park. This is the site plan. This is going over where Hillcrest Elementary was. The newest part of the school will be kept. I believe it's a gym. And then the rest will be demolished to make a park. Here is what their demolition plan is looking like. And here's the site plan of what they're hoping to make it look like when they're done. And this is kind of what it looks like over what was already there. So it's quite a few changes. And then here's the landscape plan, which is easiest to see what it'll look like on.
Who actually designed this part? How was it determined what would be left and so on?
So Blue Line Designs was contracted by the city to do the landscape design and the park design, along with WPA, I believe, architects, and they worked on the building, but through open house. this is in public input, is how the amenities were decided upon.
And about how many square feet of building will remain?
Let me see if it's in my
I
notes.
think it's around 11,000.
That much, actually.
They will be in the regular meeting, so you could ask him that.
Okay.
I have it written down in my
This
office.
looks pretty exciting. That's all right.
So they're keeping the gym.
Yeah.
Gym
They-
and the restrooms and showers or whatever.
They're removing the stage, which will allow the gym to be turned into a full-size basketball court and accommodate additional space. They're turning the kitchen into what they're calling the family room, which is kind of an amenity space where people can recreate. And then there's one classroom that will remain, as well as the restrooms will be added in the equipment room for the splash pad.
So for the access, reservations will need to be made, I guess, to. use
So the gym will be, from what I understand, it'll be run as an extension of the fitness center. So if you have a pass there, they'll have basketball, pickleball scheduled there. Some of it will be open, some of it will be scheduled games. Bryce Merrill will be the one programming all that with our rec department. So they're planning to really use that
That sounds
building,
great.
utilize it.
Will that linoleum be replaced with?
I believe it'll be a Mondo type floor, which is, Mondo is what the track is at the fitness center down here. The linoleum will be replaced with a floor that's more conducive to recreation purposes for basketball and those sports.
There's what it currently looks like from the street, so it'll be a little bit different. You have
That's not what it currently looks like. It's been demolished, like there's nothing
Yeah,
there.
what it looked like when Google took the picture. Before anything got torn down. So that is what it was. Does anybody have any other questions about the park? Perfect. Next item. Our next item is Housing Authority of Utah County and Canyon Breeze. So this is pertaining to this area here. This might be a little easier to see. It's currently 55 plus senior housing. The Housing Authority of Utah is hoping to turn, can you see my map? Okay. This building right here, there are studio apartments inside and they want to lift the age restriction to allow younger people to move in. But they would be graduates from the autistic school that's in Provo. So they are able to independently live in things, it's just so they can work.
So
on
those would be
skills.
the sole residents then of the changed, the county housing. That would be the entire population of the area that would be changed.
So it would just be in that main building, the rest of it
Yeah.
would still be 55 plus.
Well, I understand that, but I'm saying what the county will have.
Mhm.
It'll be just those that are graduates of this academy, correct?
I believe that's what's currently proposed for the agreement, is that right, Aaron?
Question for the entire site, the county will control the entire site.
Oh, the county will control the entire.
They are
They're
right.
buying the property.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, the housing authority.
Housing.
of
Yeah.
Utah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm sorry,
okay.
I misspoke, but
No, you're okay.
the entire site will control.
If the county's gonna buy
Yeah.
it, can they just do what they want anyway, or is it because it's the county and not the state, they need our approval?
There's a restriction on the deed itself, that the city controls. Right. So that's why they're coming in and trying to modify that agreement that was recorded.
Because
How much housing in the city of Orem does the county actually control? Are there many domiciles that, do you have any idea? I know there's some quite near where I live.
Couldn't tell you the number of units, but they do have quite a few.
Do they have quite a few?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a place, 800 South Main Street, just on the corner to the northeast of that intersection is some housing that's county controlled.
the county's subject to the same, in order to get the restrictions, but did they have to have a public meeting? Was there notices?
They did, they had a neighborhood meeting, it was part of the packet.
3 people showed up.
Yeah. They have a project like this, and hopefully the applicant will be here to explain. They have a project like this in Provo where they have a mix of 55 and older and some autistic students as well. And it seems to be working, from what he's told us, working pretty well. integrating pretty well with each other.
So Provo's autistic school or whatever that program is, it's unique. Like I have dear friends from Indianapolis who have an autistic son who didn't fully develop, and he graduated from that program, and now they moved to Orem, actually, because they said there's better services for autistic adults in Orem than anywhere in the world. In America, there or whatever, not.
Orem or Provo, you said,
They moved to Orem. Well, it's kind of down in the river bottoms, right?
Right,
It's over by, somewhere in the river bottoms there.
Uh-huh.
It's right by the river district. that
Right.
we brought
Right, yeah,
forward a couple
exactly, where
meetings ago.
we rezoned. So, and they just live right at the top of Palisades up there, but,
so really, the housing, I don't know what precipitated the sale of this property to the county. I guess it's already been affected, hasn't it, the
Well,
sales?
so a little bit of background, this is a very unique project. It was built in the early 90s and the city actually owned the land.
Oh, the city,
And
I
the
know
city,
the complex, I've been in there.
yeah, so the city somehow partnered with the developer, the owner, and they developed this agreement for the senior housing. That owner has owned it since that point, and he is now, his exit is to sell it, and it's not really a rezone, it's a amendment to the agreement. And so we're treating it as kind of a rezone because there's not really a good process to handle it otherwise.
so whatever we decide, this doesn't go to council, or would it go?
It will go to city council for final approval.
Okay.
So it'd be a positive or negative recommendation.
So the housing, near as we can tell, the people that are occupying these dwellings are, it's private, they're paying for it themselves, the residents are.
Yeah, Jeremy can probably speak better to that when he's here,
Okay.
so I suggest asking him any questions you have associated with how that will work.
Okay.
I know Councilman Millet asked me the other day, what's going to happen to the tenants that are there now?
Yeah.
He could address that and tell about their plans.
But it's section 8 housing now.
I'm
Oh,
not
Section 8?
sure.
I stopped by and talked to the manager.
So it's
What is section?
Low income,
Is it, oh, it is now.
subsidized if needed,
Okay, good.
low income resident.
Yeah, it's set up that way
Yeah.
to help with lower income.
And so it's all rented out, it's not, people don't own those units, the other units.
No, they just rent, and then the big building is assisted, like
Right.
single assisted living right now.
Currently,
Yeah, they have like a pull cord if they need someone to run into.
and that's kind of their clubhouse. So what would be the clubhouse? There won't be a clubhouse for the rest of the
So there'll still be
facility.
an open area. They'll just modify the existing units into single tenant units. And they'll still have, my understanding is they'll still have the open area.
That's
They
from
said
what
they
we
said they would still have that area open for any denomination you want to meet there, because that's what they used it for now, is the church.
Church,
So any denomination you want to meet, that would still be available.
What did they say about the kitchen? Are they still gonna provide meals?
They didn't say anything about that kitchen.
That'd be a good question for him though. To ask at that point.
what reasons would there be to not approve this? I guess is the question I'd ask, but any obvious concerns that any of you would have?
Well, one of our concerns was the number of tenants in that building, and so we requested that they don't change that number. Parking is limited on site, so
Parking is.
that would have been a challenge if they had expanded their units. But I still think it's a good question. If, how many of these tenants do you anticipate driving? And do you feel you have enough parking? And
For the people that are in the school down in Provo, I've been there a few times. Not a lot of them drive, a lot of them take public transit.
They provide their own shuttle, I think, allow, or give them rides to places as
Right.
well.
But, I have some questions around, you asked Jim, I have some questions around, if these were built for section 8 and maybe for senior housing, is that the same kind of unit you would use for someone who's autistic,
Yeah.
Is the actual physical building appropriate for that? The other question for me is does it fundamentally change the nature and character of the neighborhood? I kind of feel like I'm the protective, if there's the fundamental change in the nature and character of the neighborhood, I get nervous about the current residents, right?
Yeah,
So.
well, I met
that's
with
what-
them, but only had 3 people who said that were there, so.
Per our thing, only 3
Yeah.
people showed up
Yeah.
that were not
I get it.
related to the project.
there are a lot of apartments around it, to the south and a little bit to the west, and so Your single family homes are to the east, and to the north you have twin home, senior privately owned units.
So it appears though the county is, this autistic issue is something that they see there's a need for more housing.
Yeah, well, I think Jeremy can speak best to it, but what he has shared with us is that they're not in the business of doing assisted living in a single building. And so they were looking for a model where they could pick up the site for their mandate that their board has and partner with a group that could use that building. And so they see that as a solution to a win-win for both parties.
Meaning it would be for partnering. There's gonna be some other type of use of the building besides being housing for the.
No, just meaning what Jeremy's group does is the units outside of the main building. That's their mandate. That's what they do, is rent out units to low income seniors and whatnot. So the assisted living building was not attractive to them, or it's not something that fits their model of operation.
Got it.
Because that's the other part of it, is they're asking us to remove the assisted living covenant on it.
Correct.
From it.
Yeah.
So it's actually two parts what they're asking us.
Yeah, so I put the two different parts that they're changing up in the slides. So the first one is it's the age restriction to do that. And then it's also moving it to them, as well as getting the assisted living residents relocated to another one of their facilities, from what I understand in talking to Jeremy. But
And you
he did say he will be here, so.
Okay, because I was just gonna ask if you, because I have questions, but they're more appropriate for him and he can answer, so
But so there's one resident per unit, is that kind of the design?
that would be what the design.
So that's our recommendation, is we add that condition of council, if they choose to approve it, limit it to one per unit. So we have a maximum of 21 people.
Since that part.
Well, that's the way that Provo did. So they're every not in Provo, they're all living in their own room. But they have a staff there that helps them.
And they will have staff.
And it's kind of assisted living. So I guess I'm worried that it's not gonna work.
They will have staff here as well, because they're whatever needs they know that they need. They'll know who the residents are because they graduated from their program.
Sure.
And they will have staff there.
They have some that are more independent than others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
So they did say in our conversations with them that the students are self-sufficient when they graduate, but they will have resident case management. And will be aware of each individual's particular needs.
I think it's cool to have some representatives here as well.
Okay. So are you okay if we continue this conversation in there when we have the appropriate people, or is there more you'd like to say?
I'm wondering if we need a fuller planning commission to move this forward. And that's
Well, and
that's for the next meeting.
That is for the next meeting, and so, we
Okay.
can talk about that in the
Talk
next
about
meeting, that's fine. But I think we need to hear from them too, it's all noticed and whatever, so we need to go through the process. If we can, that's something we can discuss too. So moving on, 3.4.
Perfect. So item 3.4 is the general plan map. This is essentially just cleaning up the map because when the zoning was changed back to C2 along State Street, the map just hadn't been updated yet, so we needed to get that updated so that it matched the zoning. So here's what it was. And then here's what we're proposing. So all of that pinkish red along State Street is the C2, so it's just turning it back into that.
So just to be clear, this is more just changing the map.
Yeah.
General plan map.
General plan map, and then, because I was like, I don't even know what community commercial, and I tried to look it up, and it's not in the planning, in the city code, and so I was like, okay, what is this designation? But if it's literally just that it's changing the map designation to C2,
General plan designations.
okay,
So you go to the general plan, it's in there.
so the general
There's
plan, okay.
designations for the land use types in the general plan. That's different than the zones. The type of land use, the zoning is. the
This is
mechanism.
taking it back to the prior to the districts being put up.
Yeah, and being clear that it's just the map that's being updated too.
That's why it says 2.1.1 of the
General
general
plan.
plan, Because
And-
that's where this map is hosted, listed.
Okay. Just clarifying.
No, that's good.
No,
So-
that's perfect.
Okay.
So why would the map need to be changed on this?
Because the zoning's changed.
The what?
earlier this year.
The State Street Master
This plan
Plan
was
got
changed.
changed back.
Right, I understand that.
So the zone, because the zoning has changed, the general plan map is now incompatible with the zoning map.
It's basically housekeeping
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say,
to get it to line up.
I think we're. Which is great. I think we're-
Yeah.
I guess that,
Can I just ask a stupid question? Is the general plan and the master plan the same?
They are.
He said yes. I always heard it called the master plan, but it's the
General
general
plan.
plan.
Yeah, the city, different municipalities call it different things. They're synonymous, but we call it the general plan.
Okay. And when was the last time that was updated?
We've updated it about a year or two ago with different, it's ongoing. We haven't had an overall for quite a while, but we update it every few years with modifications like this.
Okay.
So in terms of allowances as to what can be done on State Street, it has no impact whatsoever changing that map.
It does, well, if somebody requests a zone, we want it to match the general plan, so it's really just more of a housekeeping to match the zoning that's in place.
So we changed the language, but we need to change the map.
Correct.
Because we already changed the map in the ordinances,
The zoning has changed.
yeah, but we didn't change the map in
didn't change
this
the map.
report, basically. is what you're saying.
Yeah, so typically the general plan is a 25-year plan. The city council ultimately decides the overall growth of the city. And the general plan is kind of that guideline to, in the future, if somebody requests a zone specific, then the general plan is typically matching that request. So if not, then the council can decide if they want to change that general plan to match the zone. Doesn't necessarily have to. The state of Utah doesn't require general plans to match zoning. So it's more of a guideline, but we're planning to change it so it's more with what we have on State Street.
And you don't want people looking at it and seeing mixed use every intersection.
Yeah, because if you were to look at the southwest area, in the general plan, we have it identified as residential, or the southwest residential, I think is what we've designated it. But if you look at the zoning map, it's gonna say OS 5. So if they want to come in and actually rezone the property and put in a development, that's when they come in and change for this, they apply for a zone change, even though the general plan shows it being low density residential. That's our plan, but the zoning currently is in a holding zone until they can actually come in.
So if somebody comes in the southwest, for example, and wants to rezone it to an R8, that's consistent to low density residential. So it would be consistent. If somebody come in and said, well, we want to do a high density, then it would not necessarily be consistent because it's a low density residential designation. Doesn't mean it can't be changed, but that's kind of the forethought of planning is, hey, this is what you can shoot to aspire to, and when you come to rezone it and you go to an R7, 5 or an R8, that's consistent with low density. That's kind of the difference. The general plan doesn't necessarily dictate the zone. It's more of an overall plan, future plan.
Okay, any other questions about the map? Okay. Did we want to discuss the calendar in here? Yes.
Can, really quick, it's pretty straightforward.
Shouldn't take too long. This is what we have on as the proposed meeting calendar for the upcoming year. Does anybody have questions about it? It's following the same pattern we've had this year.
So you'll notice the first week in April is spring break. So that's why we don't. We have in the past and have been chastised, so we just take it out.
Preemptive, it's fine.
Awesome. Any other questions about that?
Nope.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Sam. Stop sharing this.
Oh, there was.
So Ryan, are you gonna leave some Christmas songs today? Do I see that on the agenda?
Sam was gonna give a solo at the end of.
Yeah, I saw something, I didn't.
I think Aaron brought his guitar, right?
No.
Or was it your boot?
It would be some sort of a solo.
Do a sing along.
Yeah. I need to. I need to Windows P to get it,
Windows
so
P.
it's duplicate.
I think, yeah,
Let's do it that way. So now is it my screen up there?
Yes.
So let's close this guy and then go back into, well, not that one. So I gotta share it. It's considered now. Okay, let's go back. Perfect. Thank you for giving us some time. My name is Sam Kelly, city engineer with the city of Orem. I have John Dorney here. He is with Orox Consultants. And he is helping us update our master plan, transportation master plan. Right now, I'm gonna hand out, or Jason's gonna hand out a letter that has been drafted by our Transportation Advisory Commission, talking about some different philosophies that we'd like to include in this update to our transportation master plan. Just looking at it, a few of the keynotes. Essentially looking at the reality of, let's look at not trying to build ourselves out of congestion. Mainly what that means is probably accepting a lower level of service, meaning that we are gonna be content with a few more cars on a roadway and or a little bit more delay at an intersection. Instead of looking to always build, always widen, make things bigger, let's try and keep our community the way it is. One of those philosophies in there is not allowing or permitting the city to widen to a 7-lane facility. Currently, there are some facilities in the city that are 7 lanes, State Street and Geneva Road. Those are UDOT controlled facilities, but mainly the comment is a little bit directed at Center Street. Center Street is on our regional transportation plan, the 2050 plan, to be widened to a 7-lane facility. It's from I-15 to State Street. It's not to say that it may not need that. Maybe we're okay with that, but we also understand, looking at State Street, it's a great commercial corridor, but it also is a big dividing line right through the middle of our city. So their letter kind of addresses things like wanting to have more of a community, look at other things like enhancing our active transportation, looking at other modes of transportation, because we don't necessarily want to be looking at always widening our corridors, buying homes, creating this dividing line. They're kind of wanting to keep their community the way it is. So with those, you can go ahead and read that letter. I do have a draft. I apologize, I didn't get some hard copies made, but I can work to get those available. You'd have to come back and pick those up, or I can send out a PDF link and you guys can go ahead and review that. I know some of the council members do have hard copies, and we can provide those for you as well if you prefer a hard copy. Understanding that it's this big, so it is a pretty healthy document, so we can provide you electronic or hard copies. And with that being said, I'll just turn some time over to John and he can kind of go over some of the highlights of our update to our master plan. Okay. Good. Computer. Sure. I don't know where you've been.
Press this button.
Yep.
Okay, John Dorney again with Orox. It was mentioned before about the general plan. And I mentioned the difference between an update and a complete redo. And so we kind of fill the gap between those updates. We try to follow a general plan update so that we're not doing the same thing where we say something and then a year later the general plan gets updated. And so our TMP is now not in accordance with the general plan. So a lot of times these master plans, whether it's water, sewer, parks, transportation, will be updated after a general plan update. So this version is a small update. It's not a complete redo. And so what that means is we updated the 2015 full TMP. Some of the things we updated, the existing data, current conditions, we went and did a bunch of counts This was right during COVID and post-COVID, and the state and everybody was wondering, is traffic worse or better? A lot of people skipped 2020, 2021 and said, all right, we're gonna go back to 19 because that was more realistic. And now that 23 and almost 2022 and almost 2023, we've kind of confirmed that we're getting back to normal, what the new normal is. And so we did a little bit of that. We worked with your staff, we worked with the state, we got our own counts, and we established traffic data. And we also, you've heard the term level of service, A, B, C, D, E, F. We'll talk about that a little bit. We updated that. We looked at road cross sections. That's where you have park strips. How wide are your lanes? How long are your setbacks? We updated cross sections. We also removed the districts that were mentioned today. The reason why you switched the general plan is because those districts were reverted back. We did the same thing in ours because they were in the original travel model that MAC manages. We took them back out and retro them back to pre-district time. Our model goes up to 2050. We do a 2020 or 2030, 2040, 2050. And we've included MAG's 2050 recommendations in there. So we try to match up with MAG's model of their timing. And at the end, we put money on the cost of improvements so that the city can say, if we keep to a level of service D, what are we gonna have to come up with to build ourselves out of this? And that is kind of reference to what the tax said, is that we don't want to build ourselves out of this, right? So we'll talk more about that. Again, this is a high-level master plan process. So we use WFRC MAG's model. It's based on roadway level of service. When you get into individual intersections, that's when you do a more detailed study on a project level, when you're looking at your different roads. This level that we did now kind of looks at the whole region and the whole area. The model we use runs from Payson to Ogden. So we went into Orem and did a fine-tuned look at it. That process, we look at, again, high-level model from Payson to Ogden. Then we go into Orem and we say, listen, this TAZ, this traffic analysis zone is this big. Let's go in and fine tune it. It's kind of like pixels on a TV. The bigger the pixels, the less accurate it is. So when we come in and make those TAZ zones similar to a zoning map and subdivide those smaller and say, MAC says this zone is going to have 3,000 homes and this one's going to have 5,000 square feet of commercial, and we go with your staff and say, no, that's not right. We're going to allow this. And so we match the TAZs with your zoning and fine tune the model. We look at population, employment, traffic, land use. We look at all those things, run it in the model. We review it with OTAC, staff provides input. We consult the general plan, and now we're going through the adoption process. We've already shown this to OTAC, we've shown it to the city council, your staff's looked at it, and so we're kind of in this adoption phase. It's kind of a circular process. Again, these are all available in the document. These are where we provided our counts, your counts, the state's counts. We also look at functional class. You've already mentioned this, highlighted in black here. The OTAC mentioned that we don't want possibly larger than 5-lane roads. And 5 lanes just means 2 in one direction in the center turn lane or center pocket intersection. So when we say a 4-lane or 5-lane road, that's the same thing typically. So the functional classes you can see with this graphic, it has a freeway on the upper right. That's high mobility, but terrible access. Local streets and collectors have really good access, but terrible mobility. UDOT errs on the side of mobility, and MAG wants to move traffic. They don't want intersections every half mile or more, but there's a balance between, do you want access for your residents and businesses, or do you want to move traffic? And that's that sliding scale that your staff in the city and UDOT are all working through. And that's kind of what through the different decisions that we make here and OTAC and council meetings. What does the city want to be like? Sam already said State Street cuts through your city. It's a little bit too late on that. That's kind of a mobility road. We look at the existing network. I don't know if you can see the legend there, but it goes through, where's our lights, where's our hawk signals, our crossings with the push button for the pedestrians, where's our roundabouts, what's out there now, what's our functional class, what's an arterial, what's a collector. We also look at level of service. We talked about that A through F. A lot of cities require CD as a minimum. UDOT's a D. There's been discussions with OTAC and here that maybe we should allow a level of service E. And that would go in line with not building ourselves out of congestion. And so if you accept a higher congestion road, that impacts the community. But what impacts worse, the driving for maybe 2 hours out of the day, or taking people's homes and businesses and having that. So that's the trade-off. The congestion level is typically analyzed during the peak hour for 1 hour. And how the math is done is actually 15 minutes. If you really get into the hardcore traffic engineering, they take the worst 15 minutes of that hour. And that's the analysis that we're building signals and roundabouts over to accommodate that worst peak time. So the city would probably want to work with Sam and your staff to say, well, what intersections can we put up with only having a bad signal, a really bad congestion for maybe 2 hours, and the rest of the 23 hours we're fine. Sometimes on the Parkway and University Avenue or State Street, it's just all day long, all night long. So you have to decide, do you want to lower that congestion parameter? By lowering it, reducing it from a D to an E, these numbers are kind of a generic rule of thumb. If we had a 2 or 3 or 4 lane road, how many vehicles per day can we fit on there until we exceed level of service D? An arterial and a collector, they have different parameters because even though they're the same lanes, like a 4 lane arterial and a collector, an arterial will allow 31,200 a day before it exceeds level of service D, and a collector is 24,000. Usually it's because collectors have more accesses more often, residential access on the sides, or they have friction factors. Sometimes residents even live on collectors, they have garbage pickup. And so on an arterial, your intersections are spaced further. So the friction factors and the signal spaces mean that you can push more traffic on a freeway or on an arterial. I drove to Fillmore yesterday and talking to a friend who's not a traffic engineer, and he said, we were talking about the same thing. And I said, we're on I-15, and it's a 2 lane road, but there's an access every 20 miles between Nephi and Fillmore or wherever. And so a freeway can handle 30, 40,000 trips a day on 2 lanes because there's nothing getting in the way. But as soon as you take those same 2 lanes and 30,000 cars a day in a city, you can't handle those just because of the friction factors. And so that's, if the city goes the direction of reducing the level of service standard to E, these numbers would go up, meaning an arterial road that has 31,000 or 35,000 now may be considered unacceptable. But if it goes to 38,000 as the parameter, you're below that, you would be now acceptable. So you would be accepting more congestion. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Can you define exactly what arterial and collector are? I'm sure you can, but
so it's typically intersection spacing. An arterial will say, we'll allow a light or a signal. There's 2 things, an intersection and a lighted intersection. Typically it's a half-mile spacing or quarter-mile spacing where you can have a signal, and everything else in between can be non-signalized, but if it becomes too busy, you end up closing that off, and it has to be a right of way out, so you won't get full movement. And arterials usually have longer spacings and more restrictions on accesses. Collectors, you can have signal spacings closer and intersection closer. So the more you have lefts and rights and a lot of access, then the more restricted it is, And we categorize roads on kind of what we want them to be, like Center Street. Between State and I-15, you've got the high school. You don't really have residences on that part of Center Street, but you do just out here.
Yeah.
And so 8th North, if you remember, the north side of 8th North was houses. They took all those out. And now it's Berge Automotive and a big landscaping area. So there are situations where arterials might be classified as an arterial, even though there's residents on them. But that's kind of what they want to work towards, is that we know it doesn't qualify to be one based on today's standards, but we want that to be an arterial. So when people come and develop, you say, no, you can't have those 5 accesses, you gotta make 1. But if it was a collector, you could say, well, you get 2 or 3. And UDOT has the same thing, right? Really strict access management standards. So really the difference has to do with the friction factors on the road, widths of lanes. If there's a small shoulder, if there's a big shoulder, you can go faster.
So they kind of overlap. I mean, there's not a clear delineation between one and the others.
Yeah, you might look at a map and wonder, why is that a collector and this one not?
Yeah,
Well, part of it is what the city wants to do. If we don't put it in as a certain designation when a developer comes in, a collector right away might be 50, 60 feet, but an arterial is 90. So if you don't reserve that right away, you won't get it. And so part of it is corridor preservation for width, and part of it is access management. There's an intersection level of service too. Again, that's the micro model, that's the A, B, C, D, F. If you were to restrict and lower that level of service standard to E, you would now accept higher average delays. Those are 55 to 80 seconds for level of service E. D is 35 to 55. That's just a way to try to quantify someone's experience. And it's not uncommon. When I came through State Street, it might take me 3 cycles to get through across State Street. So by definition, this would be level of service F because it took me so long. But is that worth making triple lefts and double rights? Probably not. We just know that it's busy. But this also, by lowering the standard though, developers don't have to do as much to get approved, right? So if they maintain level of service E, then that's good according to city standards. So by reducing that standard, you're also allowing developers that same standard, because you can't hold yourself to a different standard. We mapped out estimated level of service based on those parameters I just showed you. You can see Center Street, I don't have a pointer, but it's the only east-west one that's yellow. 1600 North. Also, this is just University Parkway. You can just see, okay, and this is looking at an entire day. Most of our experience is peak hour, and so it's hard to consider level of service when you're thinking of 10,000 trips a day, because that sounds a lot. So this is a mathematical level of service based on those numbers that I gave you. We applied this table to the left to the roadway volumes that says, based on roadway volumes, this doesn't function adequately. But what you experience is the intersection level of service. And so we try to relate to that. But you can probably look at this and say, yeah, that road's busy. Yeah, that makes sense. There might be other ones you might think, well, that intersection is way worse. Why isn't that red? Well, we're not looking at intersections too closely yet. But if 2 or 3 roads are red, then you know the intersections are bad too around it.
So I'm sorry, what's green, your little legend, I couldn't read it, green, yellow, and blue, what's that?
So green is level of service A through C. Level of service D is yellow. And E and F is red. So right now you accept level of service D. So level of service D is yellow is, yeah, you're a little bit busy, you're on the cusp. But you're not considered failing. These are the TAZs we talked about. MAG draws out these TAZs and then we went through and made them smaller. It's similar to zoning. You've got your zoning.
What is
parcels.
TAZ? What is that?
Traffic analysis zone.
Okay. And MAG is Mountain Land Association of Government, I guess.
And different than your zoning, if you have State Street, your zoning might, and I saw it on your slide, the red lines, it borders both sides of State Street because of the commercial zone. The TAZs are kind of the opposite. Like if there's a railroad track, that traffic analysis zone traffic physically cannot go through that track. So we assign traffic based off these TAZs based on where they can physically go. The freeway's a boundary, the railroad's a boundary, rivers are boundaries. You can see Orem's kind of on a grid mostly. So we go block by block. And this is the meat behind the travel demand model that MAG maintains, but we specialize for the city. Process,
How does that 2050 population compare? What's the differential? Cause those numbers are meaningless, 'cause I don't know what it is today.
yeah, so MAG and the governor's office produce what they believe the population is gonna be
Okay.
for the next, it's 2050, 2060. And MAG is subject to sticking to that. If you went to MAG and say, we don't believe your model, you need to increase Orem by 10,000, they would say,
I understand.
Okay.
What I'm trying to understand is what is how does that compare to the current population? What's the
What's the
delta?
I'd have to look at,
Because without the delta, it's hard to know what this is
well, it's
saying.
probably actually in the document. MAG produces what they estimate Orem in every city to be. We can provide that, it's just based on what they feel the growth is gonna be. And it's actually not a lot compared to like Eagle Mountain, it's 500,000 out of Eagle Mountain, and I think Orem gets up to 120 or something like that.
Yeah, it's not much higher.
It doesn't have that kind of growth.
We're almost built out.
But I
found it, John.
Okay.
So the executive summary says it's expected to be 103,000 by the year 2030 and 119,000 by 2050.
Okay.
That's what.
Yeah.
119,000 you said.
Yes.
120 was right. So compared to other, cities out here, it's moderate, but
Yeah.
until you go vertical, right? That's again zoning and densities. This is just a graphic of the process. We looked at existing model to get existing capacities. We looked at the future model to get future capacities. Nothing special there. It's kind of just a visual of the process. We're trying to do our best guess to figure out, okay, what do we need in 2030? What if we did nothing and we didn't build ourselves out of anything and we just let traffic grow and let population grow? What would our roadways look like? These are what we estimate your road segments to look like, meaning red would be failing, green would be okay, acceptable, and the yellow would be D.
So it's not much different than what it is currently, that's really what you're projecting.
Yeah.
Two spots.
Yeah, not much.
John, does that take into account passenger traffic increasing?
Yeah, that was my question
Neighboring
too.
communities?
So traffic is irrespective of boundaries, unless you have a toll road. We have a map in here that we've done in 2015, we updated it, but we did the calculation of pass-through traffic in Orem City, and how we do that is we take the model and we say, because since there are TAZs, we say every TAZ assigned to Orem, give us the traffic that passes through those links, but never originates in Orem and never stops in Orem. And so what's left over is traffic passing through your city. And so we have a map in here that tells you by road around your boundary. And I think it's up to 20+%, down in Provo. I think we looked at it last time. There's I think the mayor in 2015 asked that question, so we provided the map. And it's really tough because you're fixing your roads for 20% of the population of some other city. And you don't get, other than MAG money and federal, state money to help do things, there's no way to quantify the individual driver.
Is that high compared to other municipalities, 20% to be passing through?
It just depends, like Eagle Mountain, no, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Saratoga Springs. Might be recorded. Saratoga Springs, they get the Eagle Mountain pasture, but that's usually on, Highway 73. Spanish Fort, Highway 6. The state routes are usually the ones that do that mostly. And so it just
the case for most of Orem except for Center Street, so they just.
And State Street.
And most are state routes except for Center Street, and then 1600 North would be, but it was given to UDOT. So, Geneva Road, state routes. So most of it is, there's got to be some, bleed over between, Palisades or maybe some of these others, but it happens. It just depends on the geometrics and dynamics of neighboring cities. Mapleton is kind of a destination. Springville gets passed through. Spanish Fort not so much. Larger cities, Provo are probably somewhere. They probably have the same similar pass through. We also looked at 2050. Again, if I were to flip back and forth, I don't know how fast it's gonna go, but you could see very little change. 800 north. Again, this is all level of service D or better. If you were to drop it to level of service E, well, on state routes, you'd have to work with UDOT, because UDOT sticks with E, but you could probably work with the state and say, hey, you know what, we really want to consider, we're okay with congestion, whether it's state or city roads. But you could possibly keep level of service E on city roads and let the state do their thing. But it would could possibly affect you.
We actually need to adjourn to go to the other room, so can we wrap?
Yeah, I got one.
Perfect.
Projects. We have a whole map of projects. When you get your document, look at those and pretty much the future road network. So
Okay.
Those are the things we included in the additional document from the last one. So you do, traffic calming is mentioned in the open map. And we do have a traffic calming toolbox.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Where, just as a clarification, when are we expected to see this or be coming before?
Back at the public guidance, probably in January.
Correct, aiming for January.
And you'll get the full link in the book and all that prior to that.
We knew you had nothing better to do over Christmas break and before.
We will not expect you to do it.
Copy of the presentation as well? Yeah.
Yes.
Hard copy, right? You guys want the slides, or you want the?
I would like a hard copy of this,
It's like a 200-page report, you're gonna want it. It's pretty good.
yeah.
But he wants
This
Oh,
one,
the
his
slides.
slides, yeah, you can either send that digitally too.
So do y'all want hard copies? Is that?
I would like hard
I'd like a
copy,
hard
who else would
copy,
like
yeah.
hard copy?
I'll take it digitally.
Do you want someone to distribute to the?
Well, I want the transportation master, the proposed plan, that's what I'm asking for in hard copy, that can be digital.
Pass that to Michaela, she can help us.
Yeah.
You follow one?
Yes, I can call anybody and make sure I get what you want. You want a hard copy?
I want a hard copy.
Hard copy.
He wants digital. I'll have to distribute. Okay, thank you.
So.
That's pretty heavy duty stuff.
Email to.
Have you seen that?
I don't think that's interesting.
It is interesting.
How are you today? Good, how are you this evening? Doing very well, thank you.
It's at the same Zoom link. Okay, yeah, I definitely got out. Can you hear me?
And I will call this meeting to order. Oh, I forgot to ask somebody to say the opening prayer. Mary?
Sure.
Thank you.
Our kind and gracious Father in heaven, we thank thee for the wonderful community we live in, for the wonderful country and the freedoms we enjoy, and for the rights and privileges we enjoy as citizens here. We are grateful that we live in a place that's vibrant and growing and that provides a reasonable quality of life for many people. And we pray that as we talk today about the issues that come forward, that we will keep these principles in mind, and that we'll have a spirit of curiosity and understanding. And we ask you to bless our efforts as we do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, thank you. We will start with item 3.1.
Okay, item 3.1 is,
Yeah, our computers aren't.
Oh, you just have to.
Oh, we have to turn them on.
Just
They're
turn
not
them
turned
on.
on. Thank you. That helps. Okay,
okay.
now we're good.
Perfect. So item 3.1 is for the Courtside and Greenbrier condos. We are discussing vacating Courtside Place condominiums Plat A and approving Greenbrier condominiums, and approving Courtside Place condominiums Plat A amended, located generally at 520 South, 1230 West in the R8 zone. Here is where they are located on the map and within the zoning. And here is the existing plat. They are currently all one plat, and it is proposed that they will be divided into two separate plats, allowing each complex to be their own plat. So here's the one outlining what Courtside Place condominiums Plat A amended would look like. Here it is with the units. And then this is the this is outlining what Greenbrier condominiums would look like as its own plat. Here is where they are located and what it looks like from the street. Courtside is on the top and Greenbrier is the picture on the bottom. And staff recommends the Planning Commission vacate Courtside Place condominiums Plat A and approve Greenbrier condominiums and approve Courtside Place condominiums Plat A amended, located generally at 520 South, 1230 West in the R8 zone. Do you have any questions?
Is the applicant here? Would you like to come forward and?
Thank you. Both of these complexes are about 40 years old. At one time, they were two separate complexes. It's complicated. There's no good reason for us to be making the change other than the IRS keeps changing the rules every few years. And so at one time, it made sense to combine them into a single condominium project. Over the last 10 years, it's making a lot more sense to divide them. Also, these are the kind of projects that have to be refinanced typically on a 10-year term, and it simplifies doing that. So no changes being done to the buildings at all. We're over parked. Just going to continue on. It's just a change in the way we handle the ownership.
Is there any questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
No, I was just going to ask, what was the motive for requesting the change?
Banks and the IRS.
They get in our way, don't they?
I can't explain it better than that, but that's what it is.
Are you the owner of the property?
No, I'm not. I'm representing, it's Gary Britton is the owner. My name is Paul Washburn. I'm representing him this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing, so I will open it up to the public for comment. If you would like to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name, and you'd have 3 minutes to speak. So I will open that now. And I will close the public hearing and we'll move on. Any questions on the Planning Commission? Moving forward. Motion.
Well, I make a motion, the Planning Commission approve vacating the Courtside Place condominiums Plat A and approve Greenbrier condominiums and approve Courtside Place condominiums Plat A amended located generally at 520 South, 1230 West in the R8 zone.
I second it.
Okay.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. On to item 3.2.
Item 3.2 is Hillcrest Park. This is the site plan. And so we are approving the site plan of Hillcrest Park located at 651 East, 1400 South in the R7.5 zone. This is where it's located on the map as well as the zoning map. And here's the demolition plan. It includes demolishing the older parts of Hillcrest Elementary, but leaving the gym. And here's the site plan, as well as the site plan overlaid over the aerial view of what has been at the property. And the landscape plan, which shows more of what the park would be looking like. And here is what it had looked like when the elementary school was still there. And staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the site plan of Hillcrest Park located at 651 East, 1400 South in the R7.5 zone.
Okay, thank you. So this is the city's the applicant on this one, isn't it?
Correct. Lane Grace here that is the project manager, and he can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Tell us why we should be excited about this
You should be
project.
excited about a 9.4 acre park, regional park, that's going to be a great addition to the city of Orem, particularly the south portion of the city. It's going to be a beautiful facility. The demolition of the school has taken place. They are currently doing some selective demolition in regard to the gymnasium area that's going to be kept for a community center. Inside of that center will be some indoor basketball and pickleball courts. You'll have 12 additional pickleball courts on the north side of the building itself.
How many inside the building?
There'll be 2, I believe, that's inside of the building itself. Yeah.
Will the facility be a fee facility, or will it be free for, given that it's a park? This
will be a facility that will be available to the community with no charge. Yeah.
So the gym, who will manage that as a part of the rec center?
The city rec center staff will man the facility, take care of it, maintain it, and do all the operations of any of the activities that happen within the building, as well as the pickleball courts. I presume that there will be many pickleball court or pickleball tournaments that will come our way, and they'll want to use this facility.
That will be singularly the largest pickleball facility in the city.
At least here in the city, that is correct. Yeah,
Looks great.
we're excited about it. The anticipated opening of the park is fall of '23. So hopefully by this time next year, we're doing our thing there at the park.
Are there any new structures that will be added?
There'll be a large pavilion, a 50 by 30 pavilion. I can't really point that out on the screen there, but a 50 by 30 pavilion. There will be a walking path all the way around the perimeter of the 9.4 acre park. There'll be 2 different playground areas, one for older children, one for younger children, a splash pad, which will be quite a draw to the community. We have a smaller one, as you know, at Palisade Park up on 800 North area. But this one will be much larger, and we anticipate it will be well used.
If I could add, Lane, the large white area in the bottom right-hand corner of the ellipse it'll be I don't know what other word to use, but massive playground. And the smaller area to the left that's white is a natural playground with different kinds of playground features that are more representative of being in the woods and climbing on logs and things of that nature.
What she has her cursor there right now is the 50 by 30 pavilion.
Sounds to me like you ought to get it opened a little earlier than.
We'd love to. Yeah, that would be exciting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's wonderful. 9 acres.
It's going to be nice.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I might add, if you could go back, Michaela, to that last picture there. Kind of, and I'll have. Right in there, that area right there, in the future, there will be a culinary drinking water well at some point in the near future. When I say near future, 2, 3, 5 years, something like that.
Great.
Any other questions?
No, I think we're good. Thank you very much.
All right, you betcha.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You want a motion or?
Yeah, unless we have something else we want to discuss, I think it's pretty.
Yeah, I move the planning commission approve the site plan of Hillcrest Park located at 651 East, 1400 South in the R 7.5 zone.
I second that motion.
Okay, Murray?
Yes.
Yes, I.
Yes.
Aye.
Whatever. Okay, thank you. Item 3.3.
Okay, item 3.3 is the Housing Authority of Utah County and Canyon Breeze. This is a public hearing for amending the agreement dated October 22nd, 1993, relating to the property located generally at 380 East, 240 North to modify certain use and occupancy restrictions pertaining to the subject property. Here is the location of the property from an aerial view as well as on the zoning map. Here's a more zoomed in aerial view just to be able to see the buildings. And here is what it looks like from the street. This is the site plan of the lot, so you can just see the buildings a little bit easier there. And then the agreement, these are the 2 covenants from the agreement that kind of outline, or the draft of the agreement that outline what changes would be being made from the original agreement, including the age restriction being lifted on the main building to allow for graduates from the Scenic View Academy program.
to be able to live there in independent living situations, as well as to transfer the rights over to the Housing Authority of Utah County. Staff recommends the Planning Commission consider a recommendation to the City Council to amend the agreement dated October 22nd, 1993, relating to the property located generally at 380 East, 240 North, to modify certain use and occupancy restrictions pertaining to the subject property, with the condition that occupancy in the main center containing the 21 studio units be limited to one person in each unit.
Thank you. Is the applicant here or applicants? I don't know, plural.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeremy Rooney. I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Authority, and I have Scenic View Academy with me, as well as the current property owner, Paul Sorensen. And so basically what we are wanting to do is acquire the property and operate it under its current conditions. There are 57 total units there, 21 of which are studio. And those studio units are contained within one building, the largest building on the site. And we're seeking removal of the age restriction on those 21 units only to allow us to partner with Scenic View, who is a fabulous entity that assists with the autistic community and provides education. And they can speak to their program a little bit better, but ultimately they're excellent at what they do. And with the current age restriction, it precludes us from incorporating an autistic community into the property. And our goal is to operate that property with the senior population, 36 units that are one bedroom over the age of 55, incorporate the autistic community in these 21 units contained in one building, kind of separate, but integrate those two populations on site. The advantage of that is the quality of life and the interaction of the senior with an autistic group. Secondly, it will allow us to address a significant issue in the community with autism. Not only that, but these are adults that are trying to be implemented back into the community. And so with us as the Housing Authority maintaining the property and property managing the property as a typical with leases, property maintenance, we would self-manage that property management, but that would allow us to really facilitate those populations. I've seen this in Salt Lake County. I've worked in the Housing Authority of Salt Lake County prior to this, and there was an autistic combination as well, and it was very successful, very successful. So I'm trying to implement that in Utah County. This property there's one entrance into the property and only one exit, it's an entrance exit, so it's ideal for what we're trying to do. In terms of needs of the property, both communities, in terms of parking or rowdiness, they're very similar in their needs for vehicles or access to vehicles. They're very similar. I have prepared some parking. Generally, parking is a hot button for most people. And so I wasn't able to submit prior to the meeting, but I have since compilated 3 visits to senior properties that we manage in the area, 2 in American Fork and 1 in Springville. They're similar style, senior exclusively restricted age 55 and older. And I have parking counts for 3 dates over the last 3 weeks. And I've compiled that data. Basically, the parking requirements we'll need for the site are 21 units or 21 stalls. There are 30 existing parking stalls there. So basically, we're at 60, almost 70% utilization for the clientele that we're proposing to go in there. Now, keep in mind, as a housing authority, we have properties that have been 15, 20 years of senior properties being operated for that long. So our detail is really good. We know our population. Scenic View, the autistic group, they can speak more to the needs of their students that would be near graduation or at graduation. And I've been told that they have about maybe 25% of them have driver's licenses, and even less, 15% of them have really access to a car. So they really don't have a large footprint for parking or a demand for parking. So anyway, needless to be said, we as the Housing Authority want to set aside those 21 units exclusive for scenic view, nobody else. And so any referral would go through their program, through them. And so as a housing authority, we would just manage those units. So I don't know if you have any questions or would like to see the parking analysis I've put together, but either way.
Well, how many spots would be available for it sounds like there'd be 9 spots for the rest of all the rest of the units there. And what's the current need there?
Current. So in our analysis, we have 21 units that would be occupied by individuals living there. So we would have an on-site property manager that would be on site, and then our maintenance rotates or goes through there. They're mobile, right? So they don't need a stall for anything. In terms of services, we do not offer services. So Scenic View may have a staff or 2 on site on occasion, or maybe every day. But aside from that, we would have 7 open stalls that would be currently available.
For how many units? 7 stalls for how many?
I'm sorry, there are 57 total units. There are 36 of them are 1 bedroom.
Okay.
21 of them are studio. And your staff has recommended that the city put a moratorium on only 1 occupant in those studio units, and we support that. In our other properties, we would not want to put more than 1 individual in those studio units. They're very small.
My question is, of the other 36, not the 21 studio units, but are there more than 7 vehicles there? Because you have a parking shortage from day one.
Yeah, so the properties that I have gone and visited 3 times over the last 2.5 weeks and taking counts in the morning, midday, and in the evening. So to kind of get a mix of the car counts are a little different depending on the time of day. But we have found that our 1-bedroom units generally only have 1 vehicle, if at all, per 1-bedroom unit. So again, these are age restricted, 55 and older. Some of them don't even have driver's licenses at that point. There is an affordability restriction on this property as well. 60% of area median income is the maximum you can make to live in these units. So that type of income precludes a lot of people from even owning a vehicle. So
again, what I'm trying to understand, of the current 36 units, how many of those units have cars?
We're estimating 17. There will be 17 vehicles.
Short 10 automatically.
Yeah,
17 out of 36 would have a vehicle.
I'd like to see his numbers personally.
Great.
If there's a way we could share that.
Yeah. Do you have an HDMI that I could plug in?
Somebody.
Set up. Here we go.
Yeah.
And again, we property manage these properties. We do not, so my staff, we're a staff of 22. I do not want to encumber our staff with parking complaints or complaints from neighbors. We go into our current properties with that same mantra. And to date, we have not had any challenges. And again, we know our populations really well.
So maybe we can clarify that there were 30 total parking stalls on site.
There are 30 on site, and there's
30
some
on
question
site,
on
yeah.
if we can reconfigure and
Plus 29,
and
plus 21, right?
and restripe the parking area. We will redo the surface of the parking area, resurface it, which means we'll have to repaint. And we're going to look to see if we can maximize that. The current owner made mention that he had actually had more stalls on site until the most recent striping a number of years ago, and they misconfigured the painting of the current stalls. So currently there are 30. That's truthful, but we think we could probably get a few more based on a redesign, which obviously adds to the benefit of the property.
And then if I'm following you correctly, per your analysis, only about 25% of those 21 units would actually even foreseeably have access to a car on average with your population?
Well, I think so to be clear, I have
There are 2 populations.
I know someone who graduated from Scenic View. It's an amazing program, like world class. It's an amazing what Orem and Provo and Utah County does for autistic people is fantastic. But my assumption is the ones that are going to graduate might be the ones who have driver's licenses. You're probably not going to graduate. So what are the requirements? I guess my question is, how is Scenic View going to manage who goes into these areas? Because Grant Pereira, I don't know if you know Grant Pereira, but you guys know Grant. Grant would not fit that definition. He could not live on his own. But yeah, so who's going to go into these units?
Okay. Yeah, great question. My name is Ryan Miller, Program Director at Scenic View Academy. So we teach our students how to use the bus system. We don't do any kind of driver's training. So if they come without a car, our students leave without a car. So it's about 15% of our students at any given time that actually have driver's licenses. The rest learn the bus system really well. I'm not allowed to disclose specific information about Grant, but we do. What I can
his
say
parents
is,
are our best friends. So
great! We love Grant,
and Edson and Tracy. Yes,
there's a spectrum. Those that graduate from Scenic View that go back to home. For Canyon Breeze, those would be those that successfully moved to that last stage of our program, our transition stage, ready to live out in the community where they're still a part of Scenic View and receiving our services and feel like they would be a really great fit in the community.
And how is that a 2-year? Is that time bound as well? So it would be a transition for them?
Yes. So our average length of stay is 2.5 years. We have students stay up to 3 years, but they may start transitioning into a Canyon Breeze anywhere from 1.5 years into our program up to that 3-year mark.
So how many do you accommodate at your Canyon Breeze facility now?
So we haven't moved in at all to Canyon Breeze.
No, where you?
At Scenic View Academy, we have
That's what I meant.
58.
58,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
And you just move them through and need a place to put them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's a community for it. It's more than, it also becomes an ongoing community place for a lot of these people. Grant is still very, very, very connected to the community. And as I assume
Just saw
many of
Grant today. Yeah.
Yeah, as I assume many of your graduates are.
Yes.
It's an amazing, so that part I get.
We have a whole alumni community that are living in the Provo, Orem area that still come back for activities.
Yeah.
And there would be on-site staff
Yes.
at all times? Or just at certain times?
Usually they don't again, this is like the ones that move in here would be kind of like level 1 autism, formerly known Asperger's disorder, and do pretty well managing. We do have plans to keep staff there quite a bit of the time. We don't see any, maybe 24/7.
What would the average age of these occupants be? Any idea? I mean, it would change, of course.
The average age would be it'd be 24, 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the younger side then.
And
compared to me, that is.
We have tested this out at Cascade Gardens in Provo. We have 5 units over there in that senior living, and it's worked really well. We've also toured other programs in the country. There's a number in Texas and also in Phoenix that have done the same model. And Jeremy has mentioned it's been done in Salt Lake, and it's been really good. One of the things with our graduates, they've been they'll graduate, they'll learn how to live independently, but socially sometimes they still really struggle. And so it's been really nice to bring these two communities together that can support one another.
And that was going to my next question. So you said there's 5 units in Provo. What's the ratio of kind of senior units to grad? Is there, and all those things you mentioned, what's the typical, what's the range of ratios of senior units to?
That's a really good question.
Yeah. I guess my worry is, with 21 to, are there too many, units for the people around them to handle? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah. This would be a greater ratio than we have at Cascade Gardens. I mean, I don't know their total units, but it's, because this would be closer to 40% or
40%. Yeah.
Personally not worried about it at all. We've been doing this for over 20 years now. And we're just so excited about this opportunity. We've really wanted this, like another just spot for our students to really practice the skills they've been learning without just, so we usually go from on-site just to sticking them out in the community on their own, and to have this is just going to be a great benefit to a lot of people. But yeah, I don't know how to else to state that.
How long do you foresee them staying in these units? Are you going to be leasing them out for a certain period of time to each, or is it just going to be dependent on situations?
It's what we do with each student. Each student gets an individualized plan when they come. So some may be living and working close by. Others may be from out of state even and want to live like in the area for a time. There's a number that plan on moving back to their original state, but then they stick around because they just love the community that they have and the supports. So for us,
Is there public transportation that's
yes,
quite near there?
yeah, just really about a block away. And then a lot of our students really love the Orem library, and they're going to be able to walk there just a couple blocks away.
So the idea of the elderly community intermingling with this group is from your perspective a very beneficial thing, is what you're saying?
Yeah. And another thing, just that if it helps, I don't know if you've heard about the 85 North building. There's a 7-story building going into Provo on 85 North and 100 East, a 70-unit complex. And we've been working with Provo Housing for several years now, and they've slotted 30 units for scenic view. So that'd be something that we're also going to be doing. So that they've been working with us enough and Jeremy enough to see our work and see our students. And I feel like if you took a tour of scenic view, and maybe any questions or concerns and you meet the students, it would be like you probably see how that they could get along well, the two communities.
I've been to Scenic View.
Yeah.
A few times. Question. Are these graduates who are kind of then going to be going to the community, are they then required to pay rent? Will there be a market rent, or is it subsidized by the Utah Housing Authority? How does the financial, or because I know to be in the Scenic View Academy, there obviously you need to pay to be in there, but how does that piece of it work?
Yeah, so and Jeremy could probably speak more to that. Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So as I made mention, each of these units still have a 60% AMI restriction on them. So we have to income qualify every resident that lives at the property. That includes these 21 units that are set aside for the autistic community. We have part of our program as the Housing Authority is we have a little over 1,100 vouchers for rental assistance. And so those become available for individuals who income qualify, which would then allow a portion of federal funds to come into the property. The property would operate as a typical property with a standard lease, 12-month lease on each of these units. It's an enforceable lease, eviction, all of those things are still very much available per the lease. In terms of income, though, each individual, it's based on their economic income that they receive, and then a voucher would cover up into the payment standard for the voucher. Our payment voucher standards are changed every year per HUD per the community. So those have been escalating up quite a bit. And in fact, they generally pay about 100%. I've actually made a request to go to 120% of the payment standards so we can just try to get ahead of the escalation in rents. It's pretty expensive on 1-bedroom units and studios here in the area. So economically, the property will be very viable. I've underwritten it as such. There will be a loan on it with the seller carry finance on there. So, but the property will operate as a standard property with revenue. Will property manage it. So in terms of maintenance and upkeep, we want to make sure that it looks, when you drive by this property, you would have no idea the populations that are served there or that it's any different than any other market rate unit. So as a housing authority, we have a vested interest in terms of ownership. I don't think you could find a better owner that would be better vested for the type of property that it is with its current restrictions.
How many units does the Utah County Housing Authority have under their jurisdiction right now?
It's an excellent question. So we have 221 units currently, and we've been in operation since 1974 as a.
And that's throughout the entire Utah County.
Correct.
area.
So we have properties in Payson, in Springville, in Orem. We have other properties in, we're looking at Saratoga Springs, but predominantly we have about 220 units. Most of those are 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and anywhere from a duplex up to a 31-unit, 3-story high-rise in Springville. that actually is a mixed use with commercial property underneath on the main level. And then, and one of these property, that's the property, one of the properties that I did a parking survey on as well. So we have, and I hire the staff to property manage those, to maintain them. It's all in-house. We've already grown in both of these departments enough to absorb these 57 units. We've geared up for it. We also anticipate doing a little bit of a rehab on these 21 units to put some kitchenettes in them so they become very viable to the residents that are there. So we've put a lot of effort into making
How many
sure
of
this
the
is
220 are in Orem? Any idea?
My deputy director is out of town this week, and I apologize.
That's okay, yeah.
She's more into the details. I could get that number for you.
Oh, don't worry about it, no.
But they're probably more on the single family type home, maybe a 2-bedroom duplex. But I don't know that exact number. I'm sorry.
So the people the residents who live in these studios today would go to a dining room to eat. They would have meals cooked for them, and the difference is that there will no longer be a dining facility. Is that correct?
Oh, go separate. Yes.
Yeah, for us, we'd use it maybe more as for training purposes or activities. Yeah, by this stage of the program, they'd be able to do meals on their own and show that they've been able to do that on our campus. And then this would just be an opportunity for them to practice those same skills off campus. Yeah, so I guess their level of functioning is not where they need to be, have meals prepared for them. Yeah.
And if I could say, we've actually put an application in for some additional grant funding to assist. I mean, we can cover it ourselves if we needed to do the rehab on these 21 units, but that's a requirement of my board and myself to have these units operate independently. So that will happen. We have a plan in place. We've already spoken to contractors and have bids. We will move forward with that as soon as we're able to acquire the property.
I have some other questions, just kind of to understand what the facility is right now and what will happen to the people. Are there currently people in these 21 units? Because this is the assistant portion.
Correct.
of
Correct.
it.
I can speak generally. Paul, the current owner, could probably give you more detail, but generally speaking, they have not been leasing up units for the last month or two, anticipating this transition. So there's been some vacancies that have occurred through passing away and moving on. We are giving ample time to any current resident there. And when I say ample time, we're talking 90 to 120 days to make arrangements. Now, there is a property management group on site, from my understanding, that would be greatly able to assist in transitioning folks to nearby properties as well, that this property management group operates under as well. So, but I don't know the current vacancy rate, but there are people that, yes, there would be a few people that would be impacted by this. And that's the downside, that we don't want that. But we've built in my financial model, at least up to 120 days on some of these units. If it goes longer, 6 months, we could carry a couple of units like that. Mm-hmm. But as a housing authority, we're not profit driven, we're mission driven. So we want to make sure that these folks have a ample time and as their circumstances require and permit. So we've allocated time and resources for that.
And for clarification from something that came up in our pre-meeting, you guys are the housing authority is not willing to maintain these as assisted living units or unable to per your.
Yeah, so there's a lot of baggage as it relates to that, but the property was acquired or was developed with tax credits. And so there's an allocating agency at the state of Utah that has restriction for the property because of a funding source. And they're not really fans of assisted living properties through their funding, and so they're interested in seeing that assisted living component released. And so that's really the main driver of the assisted living piece to be removed. Secondly, we as a mission, as a housing authority, we provide housing. We don't supply any support, tenant services. We want to partner with people that do, but we provide housing and we want to remain central to that mission. So those are the two reasons.
Okay. And you may not be able to speak to this question, but it was one that I had probably because of recent personal experience, but like one that's in my mind is just that losing these 21 units for the 55 plus, especially the assisted care community. Are there beds? Are there places? Are there facilities
Mhm.
throughout Utah County that they can actually go?
So the feedback that I've received, yes, they're probably not immediate, right? There's attrition in all of these properties. And so that's why we're saying within 5 or 6 months, we'd give ample time that we could accommodate all the individuals there. Now, there are 21 units there, but they're not all occupied. In fact, I believe 8 or 9 of them are vacant currently. So right there, you have 30-40% the residents that are not impacted because they've already, they're vacant units already. So we anticipate that there will be minor impact to the few remaining.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
are there other programs like Scenic Valley offers here in the valley? And if so, will any of the graduates from those programs be available or be considered for these apartments?
I don't know if I understand the.
Any other?
Oh, you know, I have not sought any out. And the reason being is because our plan B would be that in the event that Scenic View, who we feel is very capable and would be a good partner to represent, be a reflection of the housing authority. In the event that that would not be the case, we believe that we have sufficient waiting lists to put senior residents in any of these units. So I have not considered that. I have not canvassed the area for that, but autism is a pretty significant, there's a need for that service in the community. You could speak to your competitors, but I'm sure there are some in the area, but I have not vetted any of those to date. No.
It's pretty rare to have like a residential service provider for autism and for young adults throughout the country. And so, yeah, I'm not aware of anyone else in Utah County that's doing that residentially. There's a number of people like might do some kind of day services, even more on an outpatient basis, but not used to the whole residential world and how that works. Yeah. So I don't foresee other people trying to access it.
How long have you been around? Could you share?
For Scenic View or, oh yeah.
Not you personally.
Oh yeah, Scenic View 2001. That's when it was founded.
I just wondered because in the presentation it says exclusively for your graduates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great question. Yeah, if there was more out there, we'd probably want to network with them.
Well, and the reason why I wanted it to be exclusive is because I believe that they can manage these 21 units better than having 4 or 5 or more entities dividing up those 21 units. So from a property management perspective, we want to set aside all of those units and have one entity that's filling those units, providing those tenant services if they're needed. That facilitates the property management a lot easier. And from an economic perspective, from the feel of the resident, the community. So that's strategic. We are specifically doing that by design.
No, you had a neighborhood meeting, I believe, and
we did have a public meeting, yes.
Meeting, and was everyone on board? Were there any objections to this proposition?
So there were a couple of concerns. Main concern were parking, the value of their property. Is my property going to go down in value? And so at the end of that, it was probably about an hour meeting, and Scenic View was there, myself was there, Paul, the current owner, was there. We alleviated any concern, and they all left very supportive of the property, of this change. So I can give you those notes if that's necessary, but it was very positive. They can vouch for that as well.
What concerns would either of you have regarding this thing? I mean, you think it's a slam dunk, or do you have any concerns? The parking, it appears, is a concern.
It is.
Yeah, parking is always number one when it comes to any sort of committee with the city or municipality. So I've done some analysis. It's biased, right? I mean, I've done it. It's our properties, but it's my reputation out there as well. So I don't want to slander that. So these are real numbers, real counts. I went out there 3 days, 3 separate days to all 3 properties. I've run the numbers. It's 47% utilization on our parking at our current properties. These are properties that are stabilized, been in operation for 10 to 15 years each. The only variable I don't really have a good aspect on is the Scenic View population. So in working with them, they've said, look, 25% of our folks have licenses, 15% of those have access to vehicles. So but I've seen this operation in other Salt Lake County. They're working with Provo City Housing Authority and other populations. So Provo City has gotten comfortable with this. So it is being replicated in other municipalities, but I don't want to underpark this property any more than you do as a city or as a body. So we're property managing this. I can't afford to have my staff receiving phone call after phone call and compliance issues. So it's a vested interest.
So what is the scenario if there is a parking problem?
Yeah.
What do we do? What would happen?
So as a housing authority, we can never tell people where to live when we give vouchers so the 36 units would be for the senior units that we would supply individuals from our own waiting list. Now we can encourage people, hey, we have 10 properties that you should consider amongst others of your own. We could basically do a little bit more pre-qualification in terms of number of vehicles that you have if parking ever became a challenge. But we have to be pretty sensitive to that type of information, but we can provide some recommendations to prospective residents to try to offset any sort of parking challenge that might arise. But again, these properties, these numbers that I've prepared, these are from properties that have been operating for years and years and years. This is what will happen here at this property. I'm very confident of that for these 36 units, the 1-bedroom units. There could be 2 people in some of those units, but generally when people get to this age and they're in 60% AMI percent of area median income, they're usually down to one household, one individual in the household, one income stream, usually Social Security. So it really doesn't afford a lot of opportunity for a vehicle.
I guess would be the people that come to visit.
Correct. So during the day,
Yeah.
that's right. We have 7 stalls. But again, I do believe we could reconfigure the striping at the site to garner a couple more parking stalls at a minimum.
Now, the current owner is here, I believe.
He is. Yeah.
And he would be able to speak, I would imagine.
I was getting ready to jump up, so thanks.
Yeah.
So I'm Paul Sorensen. I have operated the property for 28 years. Normally, the apartments, the 36 units, about 25% have cars. So there's always been plenty of space. We've never had any days of parking issues. The only time would maybe be on a Sunday when we have church services there, but there has still been plenty of parking.
I visited that facility. I knew an occupant, and I never had a problem to park when I went, and it was easy, very accessible.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming by, but yeah, we've never had any issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for the applicants? We good for now? Okay. Thank you very much.
We appreciate your consideration.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We will move on to the public hearing portion of this. And same thing, if you'd like to speak, come to the mic and state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes. And I will open that for public comment.
Hi, my name is Matt Harding. I live directly across the street from the entrance where Canyon Breeze is right now. I guess my only questions might be for these guys a little bit. I wasn't able to attend their pre-meeting for this, but I guess I have a couple of ideas and thoughts. So far, everything sounds really positive for how it will be and just the nature of how things will change. I am interested to find that the parking might be a little bit more than it has been, just given the nature of the residents there. That can be a factor, but usually it hasn't been even an issue for us. So we've loved our neighbors across the street with Canyon Breeze. I am interested to find out more about how the autistic population, what their needs are, how they'll be working within the community a little bit maybe, or just with the residents there. I'd like to understand how we as neighbors and residents around that area might interact with them, because we've been friendly with some of the residents there across the street, and I'm concerned about losing some of those folks as well, but hopeful that the transition can be made nice for them. and finding locations where they can stay. So short list, but those are some of the concerns, some of the things that we're interested in finding out more about.
Thank you very much. You can come forward.
You know, I would be asking all the same questions if I was across the street. A couple ideas. One, we would invite any neighbors that want to come and have lunch with us and tour Scenic View. And spend more than just a minute here answering that question, but spend an hour doing even a training on how to understand our population and how to work with them. I don't know if that's so we can meet after and give you our contact information. Yeah.
But could you answer it a little
Well,
more?
yeah.
fully for us?
So to answer it, yeah. Most of our students, I guess, come across as pretty introverted. So it's like at Scenic View, even though there's 53 beds on campus, and if you were to walk around Scenic View, it wouldn't feel like there's 53 people, and it'll be like, where's everyone at? And it's either they're in the rooms or they're out at work. We do have a smaller percentage of them that absolutely love that social time and we'll get together and play Dungeons and Dragons, play video games. As far as how to work with them, starting off with being very patient and willing to listen to their special interests, whatever that may be, whether that's, again, Dungeons and Dragons. If you don't know about that, being willing to learn about Dungeons and Dragons or anime and things like that. That's usually, if you're willing to do that, you'll connect pretty well with them. As far as problems with our students, we screen out really heavily anything that has anyone with any kind of like drug addiction or a behavioral problem, any kind of legal issues. We screen all that out before they even come to Scenic View. And then before they'd go to Canyon Breeze would be a lot of screening and vetting through our process. These are people that are able to get along with 53 neurodiverse people in one space. So in some ways we're looking at Canyon Breeze as, that's even easier for us. It's only 21 people to manage. We find them, delightful and easy to get along with if you're patient and don't try to catch them off guard. So if there's something that they're doing that you don't like, just having a nice conversation, explaining your point of view, and not, like abrupt changes could be something that could be difficult. If you came yelling or something, they could melt down or something. But
do they get out in the neighborhoods where they reside much? Will they?
Yeah, so they'll all be working. They're by this stage, they'll either be in an internship or a job, and so you'll see them, getting up, walking over to the bus stop, and taking the bus. One thing I like to do is actually stop, like when I'm driving into work, like park just every once in a while. I'll take the bus into work and back, and almost every single time I do that, I'm with either our current students or our alumni that are on the bus. I'm just getting out into the community. Some will be out, and when they come back in, they'll just want to go to their room and watch movie or play video games, and we kind of try to get them out to be social. And others will love some of the common areas. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
My God, we're still in the public hearing portion. So if anyone would like to come up and add anything, you're welcome to. Then we'll close the public hearing section of this meeting. It comes to us.
I have a question for the city, just to double check. So were all of the residents also noticed for this meeting and for that other meeting? Not just the owners, but everyone who lives in there were all noticed?
Yes.
About
within-
this meeting
within
and the other
500
meeting?
feet of the entire project, 500-foot perimeter were noticed in the meeting.
Okay.
That's how this goes. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, you can speak. I'll open the public meeting again so you can speak. You're great. No.
I guess I just wanted a little bit clarification on a couple of those other points that we had as far as what is that transition going to be like for the existing residents? It sounds like it's a complete change of all the units that are there, as the housing authority takes that into consideration, or will some of those people be staying?
Good
Housing,
question.
yep.
So the existing populations that are there, we will actually have to go through and make sure that they qualify for the property. There are restrictions on the property that have to be met. And so individuals, we anticipate that most of them will qualify for the income restriction primarily, age restriction as well. There might be some individuals that are living on site that are not 55 years of age. And so that's a requirement for the property. So if they meet the restrictions, yes, they're able to stay at the property. If they're not, if they don't meet the restrictions that have been on the property since day one, then we will have to make adjustments to those residents. And again, we would leave time for them to make accommodations. We understand that this is a kind of a big change, but nonetheless, it's a requirement of the property and it needs to be done. But there is quite a bit of vacancy there. The current owner has been very gracious to work with the housing authorities to minimize the impact to residents, one of which is to not have the units be leasing up as readily as in times past. So there is quite a bit of vacancy there to minimize this impact. We don't want to impact and disrupt people. So if they qualify, then we will leave them in place.
So Paul, you're the owner, right? You
You
currently own the place, so you would know the vacancy numbers. And are there indeed some that are younger than 55 that are living?
There's a couple that's under 55 because of handicap type issues. Most of the residents they're on a new choice waiver, which is a Medicaid program that they each individually have caseworkers that help them. So each one of those are assigned. When we initially built the project, we were probably one of 2 or 3 in the whole area that dealt with senior housing and care. Right now, there's about 10 major facilities within a 5-mile area of this. So there's a lot of vacant or places where changes can be made. Our property manager also owns 11 properties or manages 11 other properties that they can help absorb people. Inside the main assisted living, there's about 14. So the rest of the units are vacant.
So do the occupants, to your knowledge, have some notion that this is possibly going to occur?
Yes.
And what's the general response been? Are they distressed? Or are they hard to say, I guess?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's a concern, of course, is once you displace these people, where do they go?
And that's why it's been good to have plenty of time to make that transition. And usually in the assisted living building, just because of their age and medical needs, there's kind of a transition all the time of about
they'll
7 or 8.
They'll need help. They'll need someone to come in and facilitate this. It's not something that most of them, I would imagine, can do on their own. So I don't know what kind of help can be provided to find other places if they don't.
And that's the nice thing. Most every one of those are with new choice waiver that's a state program, Medicaid, and each one has an individual case manager that helps with any process like that.
Okay. And I will say that, the Housing Authority of Utah County has a board of commissioners. There are 5 on that board, one of which is a resident member who's on one of our programs. And I can tell you that they are very concerned, and rightfully so, for the way we transition this property. So they're requiring me to have ample time and sufficient budget to carry the property during this transition time to allow time and accommodations for individuals, whatever their cases or circumstance may be. So this is not something that we're not profit motivated. We are mission-based, and so my board has tasked me with a management plan that allows time for these residents. So again, up to 6 months, which is pretty significant. And Paul made mention that there are other properties in the area 10 since his established building this property. So that's a significant increase. Not only that, but the property management has another double 11 properties in addition to the 10 that are in the area. So there's quite a few spots to transition these individuals to. And there are 14 that would be impacted by this.
That would be equally affordable then.
Similar situations, similar type properties, assisted living elements, yes. So it's a different location, but it's similar. The new case, the new choice voucher and their caseworker would make sure that they qualify and that the property is similar. So in that instance, there are quite a few advocates that are advocating for these individuals. Again, I don't think you could find a better owner or potential owner for this property, given the clientele that's there. I really don't think you could find a better new owner.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing again, so, and then we can discuss. I normally don't say a lot, but just alone as an aunt of 2 autistic boys, to even have the hope of a place like this for a program that they could go into and learn and transition is amazing. The need is far outstripped by availability, and hats off to you guys. Like, that's amazing. I mean, it's a real growing serious issue in our community, and thank you. So are there any other questions or comments? Are we ready?
I have some comments. I think
Yeah.
as I look at the parking, I've been kind of going through my head. I think there could be a problem, but I'm not sure there will be.
That's a crystal ball thing. Like,
Yeah.
like you don't
Matt,
quite
If you could,
know.
yeah, but
Matt would have a feel for that, I
it
believe.
it seems like it'll kind of work, I think. So that one I can get past. What I'm most worried about is these autistic, what if this 40% overwhelms the 60% and all of a sudden they don't have any support? I'm worried about these autistic people living in this facility with 21 in the same facility without someone there, 24/7, 365 and how that happens. And hopefully if I hear the neighbors, and I believe we live in a community, Orem, where maybe the neighbors will pitch in, but I am nervous that the surrounding 60% will not be able to meet those needs. It'll be more people across the street or behind the project or down the block that would step in.
I don't know if it's open comment for that one, but.
Come to the mic. You have to come to the mic. Yeah. You can come speak. I can do what I want.
You're being recorded. That's why we have to
Yeah,
have
we
you
have
up
to
there.
hear you.
I'm with it. So it's all good. I watched some of these recordings. Just to respond to that, I can see just with the interactions that we've had, and we've had many interactions over the years. We've lived in our home for my wife's the date person. So it's like 20 plus years. And we've watched a lot of this go on. I can see nothing but a benefit for 55 plus residents there. They crave the interactions with other individuals that are younger. My sons, our kids that have been there, the young men, young women groups that have been over doing service, they always come back with how appreciative the senior residents are to have that influx of younger kids, including autistic kids that have been among those groups and been able to sit with and work with them. So we've had some personal experience with that. I'm sure these guys have a lot more to add as far as the experiences that they've had and seen with their interactions, but there's just my objective take.
Thank you. Are we, any more you want?
That my only other question is,
Oh, yeah. If you'd like to come forward, please do.
So, and Scenic View is just located just a few miles away, and we have 24/7 coverage there. And our intent to cover the needs is huge. I mean, it would be a customer service nightmare to have it not go well for us.
You'd figure it out one way or another is what it is.
Yeah, we're gonna solve the problems. If there's problems, and that's why I'm like, I'll give our number out, and if there's neighbors that have concerns, call us. We will be over there and be.
I'm more
support.
concerned for the residents than
Yeah.
the neighbors. I'm not concerned about at all.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Oh, just the
The
residents. The
Yeah, the
55
21
plus.
autistic residents there, you know.
Yeah.
That's my concern.
Yeah, I see.
If I could just add one more comment. So the property is configured of 7 buildings. 6 of them are 5 or 7 plexes. Those are the 1-bedroom senior units. The main building has all the 21 units in it, right? So you have a little bit of separation already by the configuration of the property. It really is it's the best design that I've seen yet for this interaction from my experience. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but
How is it you said you worked with this in Salt Lake. So how was that?
yeah, it was on a larger scale. It was 147 units that were autistic, and there were community members that were going in. There were elements, property across the street and to the side that were integrated into that. It was working really well. The financing was very complicated to get that off the ground, and so it drew a lot of awards because of the financing, the capital stack that went into that. But it's been very, very positive. I probably should have reached out to the executive director, my former boss, before this meeting, but I don't anticipate that there's been any change in that. It was very much on the radar of all of the community members from the state of Utah down to the county. So I could follow up with that if that's helpful, but it was a large scale property.
I was interested. So thank you
Yeah.
for the information. Okay, any more? Anything you like? It's good.
I'm good.
Are you ready to make a motion then?
I make a motion that the planning commission approve
Positive recommendation.
a positive recommendation. I have to word this
To the city council.
To the city
correctly.
council.
Recommend to the city council approving of the amending of the property located generally at 380 East, 240 North to modify certain use and occupancy restrictions pertaining to the subject property, with the condition that occupancy in the main center containing the 21 studio units be limited to 1 person in each unit.
I second it.
Jerry? Boyd?
Aye.
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 And it passes. Thank you. Positive recommendation. All right, item 3.4. Thank you all.
Okay, item 3.4 is a public hearing pertaining to the amending section 2.1.1 of the general plan and the general plan map of the city of Orem by amending the land use designation from mixed use district to community commercial along State Street. Here is what the map currently looks like. It still aligns with text that is no longer in the general plan. And here is the proposed general plan map, which would align with the text, which is currently available, which shows, which removes the mixed use from along the State Street corridor and puts it back to what it was before, which is C2 and general commercial. The staff recommends the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend section 2.1.1 of the general plan and the general plan map of the City of Orem by amending the land use designation from mixed use district to community commercial along State Street.
Thank you. And as the city is the applicant, do you have any more to say or add? We good? Good. Okay. This is a public hearing, so if anyone would like to come forward and make comments on this issue, I will open the meeting up for public comment. And I will close it for public comment. And then, do we need to discuss anything? This one's pretty straightforward. Go for the motion.
I move we forward a positive recommendation to the city council to amend section 2.1.1 of the general plan and the general plan map of the city of Orem by amending the land use designation from mixed use district to community commercial along State Street.
I second it.
Aye.
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 Okay. Item 4.1.
Okay, item 4.1 is the 2023 Planning Commission meeting calendar. We have the proposed dates highlighted in blue on the calendar.
Okay. Do we need to do anything or is this informational only?
Do you need to make a
We
motion?
make a motion? Okay. So I make a motion, oh, well, do we want to discuss it? I think we're
do
good.
it.
I make a motion that we approve the 2023 Planning Commission meeting calendar.
I second the motion.
Okay, Murray?
Aye.
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 Okay. Item 4.2, review of the last meeting minutes. Whew, it's getting long. Okay. I did have one correction that needed to be made on item 3.2. In the last paragraph, it says Chair Sakar and it should be Vice Chair Coman, and it's not because I'm being, it's just wrong. It needs to be fixed.
There you go.
But otherwise, it was fine. 3.2, last paragraph. Because then it says she does this, so we'll just get it corrected.
Yeah, we can get
Thanks.
that changed.
Yeah, sorry. So
I move we approve the minutes from our last meeting.
I second the motion.
okay.
Aye.
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 And Ryan, do you have anything for us?
Just Merry Christmas. Thank you for being here tonight so we could get some work done, and we hope you have a great holiday, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for all your hard
Same
work.
to you.
And I
Yeah.
make,
Been a great year.
yeah, we love working with you guys. Thank you. And I hope you all have a wonderful holiday too. And I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Oh, yeah.